Some places don't become haunted because terrible things happen there. Some places become haunted because terrible things never truly ended. That was the thought that refused to leave Daniel Mercer as he stared through his windshield at the enormous iron gates standing 100 feet ahead of him. Rain drifted through the glow of his headlights in thin silver lines. Not a downpour. Not enough to hide the cemetery. Just enough to make everything glisten. The ancient stone pillars supporting the gate looked almost black beneath the clouds. Massive angel statues stood atop them with broken wings and faces softened by centuries of weather. One angel had no head. Another seemed to be smiling. Daniel told himself it was simply erosion. His dashboard clock changed from 11:58 p.m. to 1:59 p.m. His engine coughed, then died. The silence that followed felt immediate, almost eager. Daniel sighed. Perfect. He tried the ignition once, twice. Nothing. A third attempt produced only a hollow clicking noise. His phone still had signal. He called roadside assistance. Estimated arrival. The automated voice announced. Approximately 55 minutes. Daniel leaned back into his seat. Nearly an hour. Outside, the city should have been alive. Instead, the neighborhood felt strangely abandoned. No passing cars. No distant sirens. No barking dogs. Only rain. He switched off the headlights to save the battery. The darkness rushed forward like water filling a room. For several seconds, he could barely see the cemetery. Then his eyes adjusted. Moonlight slipped between moving clouds. Rows upon rows of monuments emerged. Obelisks, crosses, mausoleums, weathered angels, stone stairways disappearing into darkness. The cemetery seemed less like a burial ground than an abandoned city built entirely for the dead. Daniel tried distracting himself by scrolling through old photographs on his phone. Family vacations, college friends, his younger sister Emma laughing at a beach years ago. She had always loved ghost stories. Whenever they were children, she insisted that cemeteries weren't frightening. They're quiet, she'd say. The living are always louder than the dead. She had died 6 years earlier. A drunk driver. Sometimes Daniel still caught himself reaching for his phone to call her. Grief had strange habits. He looked away from the pictures. Outside, something moved. Not inside the cemetery. Just beyond the gates. A shape crossed between two monuments. Too large to be a dog. Too smooth to be a person. When he blinked, it was gone. Daniel rubbed his eyes. Fatigue. Nothing more. He checked the time again. Midnight. Exactly. The church bell somewhere beyond the neighborhood rang once. The sound echoed strangely. Not outward. Inward. As though the cemetery itself had swallowed the vibration. Then, a knock. 3 soft taps. Against his driver's side window. Daniel jerked violently. No one stood outside. Rain continued falling. The glass reflected only his own startled face. He unlocked the door anyway and stepped outside. Cold air wrapped around him immediately. The rain smelled, not like wet pavement, not like earth. Something older. Stone, dust, and faintly, lilacs. The scent grew stronger as he approached the iron gate. A chain secured it shut. Beyond it stretched winding pathways disappearing among ancient trees. Daniel listened carefully. Nothing. Then, tap, tap, tap. A rhythmic sound. Slow, steady, coming from somewhere inside. He raised his flashlight. The beam reached only a short distance before darkness swallowed it. The tapping stopped. Silence returned. Daniel laughed for one impossible moment. The street itself seemed to breathe. The asphalt beneath his boots flexed ever so slightly, like the slow rise and fall of a sleeping chest. He stumbled backward toward his car. No! The word escaped as little more than a whisper. His rational mind fought desperately for control. Earthquakes, loose sewer pipes, stress, fatigue, anything. Anything except what his senses insisted was happening. Another knock. Closer. Then silence. The silence was somehow worse. It carried a terrible expectation, as though the darkness itself were listening for his next decision. Daniel reached for the driver's door, yanked it open, and climbed inside. His hands trembled so violently that he nearly dropped the keys. He turned the ignition. Nothing. The dashboard remained black. Not even the faint glow of the instrument panel appeared. Just moments ago, the battery had still powered his phone charger and interior lights. Now, everything was dead. Outside, the rain had stopped. Not gradually. Instantly. The silence pressed against the windows like deep water. Daniel checked his phone. No signal. No GPS. No clock. The screen displayed only a frozen image of his lock screen before fading into complete darkness. His own reflection stared back at him. Or, almost his own reflection. For the briefest instant, he noticed someone sitting in the back seat. A tall figure, perfectly still, his face hidden in shadow. Daniel spun around. The back seat was empty. He swallowed hard and faced forward again. The windshield had begun to fog from the inside. Across the mist, thin lines slowly appeared. Invisible fingers were writing, one letter at a time. D. I. E. L. His breath caught. The writing continued beneath his name. Don't look behind you. He froze. Every instinct demanded that he check the rear seat again. Instead, he stared straight ahead. His pulse thundered in his ears. Then a new sound drifted through the silence. Soft footsteps, circling the car. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Not hurried, patient, measured. The footsteps completed one full circle. Then another. Daniel strained to see through the side windows. Nothing, only darkness. The footsteps stopped beside the driver's door. 3 slow knocks echoed against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. A familiar voice spoke from outside. Daniel. His blood ran cold. It was Emma, his sister, exactly as he remembered her. Gentle, warm, alive. Daniel opened the door. His eyes filled with tears before he realized what was happening. No! I've been looking for you. The voice sounded so real that grief overwhelmed reason. You left me alone. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. You aren't real. Silence. Then a soft laugh. No, I'm not. The voice changed. Lower, older, almost amused. But you wanted me to be. Daniel refused to look. The old man's warning returned to him. Whatever calls your name tonight, do not answer. The handle on the driver's door moved slowly downward. Click. Someone was trying to open it. The lock held. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then the handle released. The footsteps continued around the vehicle once more before fading toward the cemetery gates. Only after several minutes did Daniel dare to breathe normally again. A faint orange light appeared in the distance. Headlights. His heart leaped. The tow truck. At last. The vehicle approached slowly through the mist before stopping several yards away. A man climbed out wearing a reflective jacket. You Daniel Mercer? Yes. Relief flooded through him. My car won't start. The driver nodded but didn't approach immediately. Instead, he looked toward the cemetery. You hear anyone talking? Daniel hesitated. Maybe. The driver's expression darkened. My grandfather drove tow trucks around this neighborhood for 40 years. He lowered his voice. He told me. The knocking continued. Slow, measured, unmistakable. Daniel clutched his chest. His heartbeat hadn't stopped. It was still there. Fast, panicked, uneven. This was something else. A second rhythm. One that seemed to echo from somewhere behind his ribs, as if another heart had awakened inside him. The tow truck driver stared straight ahead, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. You hear it too? Daniel whispered. The driver nodded without looking at him. I was hoping you wouldn't. The words hung in the frozen air. Outside, the shadowed figures remained perfectly still. Dozens of lanterns hung at their sides, now extinguished, their glass black as obsidian. They surrounded the truck without taking another step. Waiting, watching. The driver's radio crackled to life. Static hissed through the cab before settling into a voice so old it sounded like dry paper rubbing together. The bell has chosen. Another burst of static. The gate has opened. Silence. The radio died. The driver swallowed. My grandfather talked about this. Daniel turned toward him. He said there was a place beneath this cemetery, older than the city itself. Long before the graves were here, people believed something lived under the hill. They buried their dead above it, hoping the weight of generations would keep it asleep. And if it woke? The driver didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Daniel. They said it doesn't hunt people. It hunts names. A cold pressure settled over Daniel's spine. His name, the voice beneath the dirt, the headstone bearing tomorrow's date. None of it had been random. Something had known him, long before tonight. Without warning, every lantern outside reignited. Not blue, white, brilliant white. The figures slowly lifted them higher. Their faces became visible, or rather, their absence. Where features should have been, there was only smooth gray skin, like weathered marble worn blank by centuries of rain. No mouths, no noses, no eyes, just empty faces turned toward the truck. Then every one of them pointed in the same direction. Not at Daniel, past him, toward the cemetery gate. The massive iron doors were opening again. This time, the bell refused to stop. It no longer echoed through the cemetery. It echoed through Daniel. Each toll vibrated behind his eyes, inside his teeth, beneath his skin, as though every bone in his body had become part of the bell itself. The towering figure remained motionless. Its featureless face was still nothing more than an endless void filled with whispering names. Thousands of voices overlapped in a language Daniel couldn't understand. Yet somehow, he understood one sentence. Every name is a doorway. The windshield finally collapsed. Shards of glass floated through the freezing air. But they didn't fall. They hung suspended around the truck like tiny stars. Time itself seemed to hesitate. Daniel looked toward the tow truck driver. The man hadn't moved. His eyes were fixed ahead, unblinking. A single tear had frozen halfway down his cheek. It was as if the entire world had paused, except for Daniel, and whatever stood outside. The enormous figure extended one impossibly long hand. Its fingers stopped only inches from Daniel's forehead. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream. Instead, he reached out. The moment their fingertips touched, the cemetery disappeared. Daniel found himself standing beneath a clear summer sky. No rain, no fog, no cemetery, only a gently sloping hill covered in wild grass. The city skyline was gone. In its place stood endless forests stretching toward the horizon. The silence felt ancient. He turned slowly. The hill was empty, until he noticed a circle of 13 standing stones. Each was carved with symbols that shifted whenever he tried to focus on them. At the center of the circle stood the same white-bearded old man who had warned him outside the cemetery. Only now, he looked much younger. His beard was dark. His back was straight. His eyes were no longer white. They were human. "You've crossed into memory," the man said quietly. "My memory? No." He looked toward the standing stones. "The hills." Daniel frowned. "The hill remembers everyone." The wind carried distant voices. Not frightening. Not yet. Almost like people talking around a campfire far away. The old man knelt and placed his hand against the earth. "This ground was never meant to hold the dead." "What do you mean?" "It was built to imprison something that cannot truly die." The grass began to sway. Not from wind. From footsteps beneath the soil. Something enormous moved underground, slowly circling the hill. Daniel felt it through his feet. The vibration was unmistakable. "Centuries ago," the old man continued, "people discovered a place where names could be stolen." Daniel stared. They believed that if a name disappeared, the soul attached to it would disappear as well. The thing beneath this hill fed on forgotten names. It grew stronger each time someone vanished from memory. The whispers surrounding the hill grew louder. Faces began appearing among the grass. Transparent. Flickering. Men, women, children. Thousands of them. Each expression carried the same unbearable sadness. None remained visible for more than a heartbeat before dissolving into mist. "They're not ghosts," the old man whispered. They're echoes. They've already been forgotten. Daniel's pulse quickened. Then why can I see them? Because it has started remembering you. The ground shook violently. One of the standing stones cracked from top to bottom. A deep sound emerged from below. Not a roar, a breath. The entire hill inhaled. Every transparent figure vanished instantly. The old man's expression changed. For the first time, he looked afraid. It's awake. The second standing stone exploded into fragments. Darkness poured from the crack beneath it like black smoke. The old man grabbed Daniel's wrist. Listen carefully. You still have a choice. What choice? When it asks for your name, never answer with the one you were born with. Daniel stared in confusion. What? A true name carries power. If you surrender it willingly, you will never leave. The hill exhaled. The forest bent outward as though struck by a hurricane. Birds erupted into the sky in absolute silence. Not a single wing made a sound. The old man released Daniel's arm. I've protected this place for 112 years. I failed. His body began fading like smoke. No, wait. You must find the keeper's journal. Where? The oldest mausoleum. The one beneath the broken angel. The journal remembers what people forget. His voice became distant. The bell is almost finished counting. Daniel stood frozen beside the tow truck, staring at the solitary lantern burning deep inside the cemetery. Its pale light never flickered. It simply waited. The tow truck driver grabbed Daniel's sleeve. Don't follow it. Daniel didn't answer. His thoughts kept returning to the old keeper's warning. The oldest mausoleum. Beneath the broken angel. The keeper's journal. Asterisk asterisk. If there was any chance of ending whatever had pursued his family for generations, that journal was his only hope. He looked at the driver. If I leave now, it'll keep coming. The driver lowered his head. I think it already has. Daniel stepped toward the cemetery. The iron gates, still wrapped in their heavy chain, opened by themselves with a deep metallic groan. The rusted links slid to the ground as though an invisible hand had unlocked them. The lantern drifted farther down the winding path. Not fast enough to lose him, not slow enough to catch, always just beyond reach. The moment Daniel crossed the threshold, the city vanished. The distant traffic, the buildings, even the skyline, everything dissolved into a blanket of silver fog. Only the cemetery remained. Rows of ancient monuments stretched endlessly in every direction. The graves no longer looked abandoned. They looked occupied. Shadowy silhouettes stood beside countless headstones. None moved, none spoke, yet Daniel felt every one of them watching him pass. He forced himself to keep walking. The lantern led him beneath towering oak trees whose twisted branches locked together overhead like the ribs of an enormous skeleton. Soon he saw it, a broken marble angel. One wing had crumbled long ago, leaving jagged stone pointing toward the earth. Behind it stood the oldest mausoleum in the cemetery. Its bronze doors were covered with strange circular symbols. The same symbols he had seen carved into the standing stones in the vision. As Daniel approached, the doors slowly opened inward without a sound. Inside, the air was impossibly cold. Dust coated every surface. Hundreds of candles lined the walls. Though no one had lit them in years, every wick suddenly burst into pale blue flame. The room glowed. At its center rested a stone table. Upon it lay a single leather-bound book. Its cover was cracked with age. Stamped into the leather were two words, "The Keeper." Daniel carefully opened it. The pages were filled with handwritten entries spanning centuries. Each keeper had recorded the same warning. Asterisk, the bell does not summon the dead. Asterisk, asterisk, it summons the forgotten. Asterisk, asterisk, the nameless one cannot create life. Asterisk, asterisk, it survives by stealing identities. Asterisk, asterisk, every generation, one descendant is called. Asterisk. Daniel turned another page. His breath caught. The final entry had been written only hours earlier. If you are reading this, then I have failed. The burden now belongs to you. Tucked inside the journal was a yellowed photograph. It showed the white-bearded keeper standing beside another man. Daniel stared. The second man looked exactly like him. Not similar. Identical. On the back of the photograph was written, Daniel Mercer, Keeper, 1934. His hands began